I'm Audrey. I'm 33. And last Christmas, my sister added me to the family group chat by accident. 47 messages. Every one of them about a holiday they were planning without me for the third year in a row. My mother typed it out plain. Make sure she doesn't find out. My brother replied right under it. Just tell her the wrong date like last year. My father sent a laughing emoji. I was sitting in a hotel room 400 miles from home and I read every single word. I screenshotted all of it. And on Christmas morning, I typed one line back into that chat. Merry Christmas. Your realtor will explain the rest. The group went dead. Then the call started. 89 in 1 hour. But here's what none of them thought to check. A document filed at the county recorder office 8 years ago, signed by a woman who loved me more than any of them ever bothered to. 47 messages showed me where I stood. One message showed them where the ground was. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories. Quiet stories about ordinary people who stop apologizing for taking up space. If you've ever been the one left off the list, this one's for you. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe so the next story finds you. It was a Tuesday in early December and I was in a Hampton Inn outside Columbus. I'd been on site for a bridge retrofit. 3 weeks in, 2 to go, eating takeout at my laptop every night. My phone buzzed on the nightstand around 9. Then again, I picked it up and saw a group I'd never been added to. A thread titled with a Christmas tree emoji, the word fam, another emoji, and the word planning. 47 messages stacked underneath like a tower I wasn't supposed to see. Brooke, my younger sister, had sent a private text after. Oops, wrong chat. Ignore that lol. Too late. I was already scrolling. The first few were logistics. Nathan, my older brother, asked if the 25th worked for everyone. Mom confirmed. Dad sent a thumbs up. Normal enough. Then the conversation shifted. Message 9. Mom, we should do the nice china this year. Audrey won't be there to complain about hand washing. Message 10. Nathan, LOL. Finally, a relaxed one. I kept scrolling. My name showed up exactly 0 times in the planning and exactly 4 times in the managing. Nathan message 11. Just tell her the wrong date like last year. Mom message 14. The 28th. Say we're doing a small thing on the 28th. Dad message 16. A laughing face. Brooke message 22. What if she finds out? Mom 23. She won't. She never does. I put the phone down on the polyester bedspread. Picked it up. Put it down again. 47 messages and not a single one invited me. 4 of them made sure I'd stay gone. The phone buzzed once more. Brooke again privately. Seriously, just ignore it. It's nothing. I didn't reply. I opened the group chat again and started screenshotting from the top. I should tell you who I am because it matters for what comes next. I'm a structural engineer. I design load paths for bridges and parking garages and the occasional hospital wing. I've been licensed for 9 years and I spend about 40% of my time on the road staying in hotels like that Hampton Inn, eating dinner alone, billing hours. I'm good at my job. I'm good at it because I'm patient with details and I don't skip steps. And those are qualities my family has never once found interesting. Growing up in Millfield, Ohio, I was the middle kid who turned in homework on time while Nathan played varsity baseball and Brooke did pageants. Mom drove them. Dad cheered. I rode my bike to the library. That was fine. I told myself busy people get forgotten, and I kept telling myself that for years. I sent the Christmas gifts on time every year. I booked the restaurant for Mom's birthday, 3 years running. When Dad needed his truck moved for surgery, I drove 6 hours on a Thursday to do it. When the roof leaked during a storm and Nathan was too busy to check, I called the roofer from a job site in Kentucky and paid the deposit over the phone. I never asked to be thanked. I just assumed that being useful was the same as being included. And still last December, I showed up at the house on the 28th, the date they gave me with a baking dish full of scalloped potatoes and a bottle of wine, and the door was locked. Lights off. Wreath still on the hook, but nobody home. I called Mom. She picked up on the fifth ring. Voice light. Oh, honey, I thought we told you. We did Christmas on the 25th this year. It was a last-minute thing. I stood on the porch with the potatoes cooling in my hands and I said, "That's okay. My fault for not checking. It was not my fault. And it was not last minute. I just didn't know that yet." Back in the hotel, still reading. I hit message 31 and my stomach dropped. Nathan had typed, "Closing's the 26th. Just keep her clear till then." Closing. I read it 3 times. Closing on what? 2 messages later. Mom. Karen says the buyer wants a walk through Christmas afternoon, so we need the place empty by noon. Karen, a buyer, a walk through. They were selling something, and whatever it was, they needed me out of the way to do it. I set the phone face down and stared at the wall, and the only thing I could think about was my grandmother's house, Nan Margaret's house, the yellow clapboard on Sycamore. 2 stories. A porch that wrapped around the south side like a long arm. White trim that Dad repainted every 5 years when he still bothered. A mailbox shaped like a barn that Nan's husband built before I was born. I lived there the summer after my freshman year of college when I couldn't afford the dorm deposit and didn't want to ask my parents. Nan let me sleep in the upstairs bedroom with the sloped ceiling and the window that overlooked the backyard maple. Made me coffee every morning at 6 and told me to study hard and not worry about the rest. That house was the only place I never had to explain why I was there. I had a key. I still have it, a brass one, heavier than the others on my ring, cut in a style they don't make anymore. Nan gave it to me the year she turned 75 in front of the whole family at Thanksgiving. She pressed it into my palm and said, "This is your home whenever you need one, Audrey." Mom rolled her eyes. Nathan was on his phone. Dad nodded politely and went back to the game. None of them thought it meant anything. The phone on the bedspread buzzed again. I picked it up. Another message in the chat.
I kept reading. Message 36 was the one that did it. Mom. All caps for emphasis. Make sure she doesn't find out. Not whispered, not implied. Typed in black and white and sent to 4 people who all hit the like button. 2 messages later, Dad. My father Glenn Grant, 64 years old, the man who taught me to change a tire in the driveway, sent a yellow face laughing so hard it cried. He didn't even type a word. He just laughed. I screenshotted that one twice because my hands were shaking and the first capture was blurred. I want to be clear about something. I didn't screenshot those messages to use as weapons. I did it because I was alone in a hotel room and my chest was compressing and I needed proof that I wasn't making this up. I've spent years smoothing things over. Years telling myself the missed invitations were scheduling errors and the wrong dates were honest mistakes. And the silence after I left a voicemail was just everyone being busy. 47 messages killed every excuse I'd ever built. They weren't forgetting me. They were coordinating around me. There was a calendar, a buyer, a closing date, and a plan to keep me blind while they did whatever they were doing with Nan Margaret's house. The only place that ever felt like mine. And they'd built the plan on the assumption that I would never push back, never question, never check because I never had. That was my role. The reliable, absent one who signed what she was told to sign, and showed up when she was told to show up and disappeared the rest of the time without making noise. I sat in that hotel room until midnight, reading the thread forward and backward, and the thing that kept circling was the word again, like last year, which meant last year wasn't an accident either. The potatoes, the locked door, the light voice on the phone. All of it was the same play. Run twice. My thumb hovered over the call button next to Mom's name for 11 seconds. I counted 11 seconds of picturing the conversation. I'd say I saw the chat. She'd go quiet. Then she'd cry. Then she'd tell me I was being dramatic. Then I'd apologize for making her feel bad about making me feel invisible. I'd done that math before. I knew the answer. So I pulled my thumb back and locked the phone. I sat on the edge of the bed, with both hands flat on my knees. The way I sit when I'm reading a structural report that doesn't add up, still focused, looking for the load that's not where it should be. And I asked myself one question. What exactly are they selling? Because here's the thing. Nathan typed, closings the 26th. That's real estate language. Mom mentioned a buyer and a walkthrough. Karen is a person who arranges those things. If they were selling Nan Margaret's house, that was a problem. But it was also a question. Nan died 3 years ago. The house should have gone through probate or a trust or whatever she'd set up. And I didn't know the answer because nobody had ever told me. Nobody asked me to sign anything. Nobody mentioned an estate attorney or a closing date or a buyer until 47 messages fell into my lap by accident. So before I said a single word to anyone, I needed to know what I was actually dealing with. Not the emotions, the paper, the recorded, filed, notarized paper. I turned on the lamp, opened my laptop, and typed the Millfield County Recorder's office into the search bar. While the county website loaded slowly, the way small government portals always do, I unclipped my key ring from my bag and held it under the lamp. For keys, my apartment, my car, my office badge fob, and the brass one. Nan Margaret's key was thicker than the rest, a little tarnished, with a square bow that dug into my palm when I squeezed. I'd carried it for 8 years. Never took it off the ring, even after she died. Even after I stopped going to the house because it hurt too much, and because nobody invited me anyway. The night she gave it to me, Thanksgiving, she pulled me aside after the dishes were done and the football was on, and the house smelled like nutmeg and dish soap. The whole family was in the living room. She walked me to the front door, took the key off a hook by the coat closet, and pressed it into my hand. "This is your home whenever you need one, Audrey." She said it loud enough that Mom looked up from her phone. Dad glanced over. Nathan didn't. Brooke was 12 and drawing on a napkin. Mom had smiled the way she smiles when she thinks someone is being theatrical. A tight lift at the corners. No teeth. "Mom, she's not homeless," she said. Nan didn't look at her. She looked at me. "Keep it." I nodded. I didn't understand then why she said it that way, like she was handing me something heavier than a key. Like it was a document, not a gesture. The county recorder page finally loaded. I typed in the address for 12 Sycamore Street, Millfield, Ohio. The search wheel spun. I set the key on the desk next to the laptop and waited. The recorder's site was basic. A white page, blue links, a search bar that looked like it hadn't been updated since 2011. I got a list of documents associated with 412 Sycamore, the original purchase deed from 1974 when my grandparents bought the place, a refinance in 1998, a satisfaction of mortgage in 2009, and then one more entry, a quit-claim deed recorded 8 years ago with a document number I could click. I clicked it. The scan took 30 seconds to load. Grainy, slightly tilted on the page, the way county scans always are. At the top, quit-claim deed. Grantaire, Margaret and Grant, grantees plural. Line 1, Diane Patricia Grant. Line 2, Audrey Elizabeth Grant. Tenants in common. I read it again and again. I wasn't looking at a family tradition or a sentimental gesture. I was looking at a recorded legal instrument that said I owned half of that house. Not symbolically, not emotionally. On paper, filed with the county, indexed and searchable by anyone with a browser and the address. I sat back in the cheap desk chair and let it roll 6 inches. Nan hadn't just given me a key. She'd given me the deed, and she'd done it publicly through the proper channel with a notary stamp and a filing number because she knew, she must have known that a key can be taken back, but a recorded document can't be wished away. She hadn't been theatrical. She'd been tactical, quietly, precisely, without asking permission from anyone in the family who would have told her not to. I pulled up the rest of the filings. There was no subsequent transfer, no deed for me to anyone else, no court order, no quitclaim releasing my interest. My name was still on that house the same way it had been since the day Nan signed the paper. The county recorder didn't care that I hadn't visited in 3 years. The county recorder didn't care that my family had stopped setting a plate for me. The county recorder only knew what was filed. And what was filed said Audrey Elizabeth Grant was an owner. I remember the day she signed it. I was 25, home for a weekend because Nan had called and asked me to come. She'd had a minor stroke 2 months earlier. A TIA, the doctors called it. Transient ischemic attack, the kind that resolves but warns you the next one might not. She was sharp again by the time I arrived. Standing in the kitchen making iced tea, like nothing had happened. But she had an appointment the next morning, she said, and she wanted me to come with her. I assumed it was medical. It wasn't. We drove to a small office on Main Street, a notary public who doubled as a tax preparer. Nan had papers already drawn up. She sat across from the notary and explained calmly that she wanted to add me to the title on 412 Sycamore. Tenants in common, she said like she'd rehearsed it. So the house doesn't get tangled up in probate later, and so Audrey has a place that's hers.
She signed.
I signed, the notary stamped it, and we dropped the original at the recorder's office on the way home. The whole thing took 40 minutes. When we got back to the house, Mom was in the kitchen. Nan told her she didn't hide it. Mom's face went flat. You're putting Audrey on the deed, not me. Nan poured 2 glasses of tea and handed me one.
You're already on it, Diane.
Now Audrey is too. Mom set her jaw. This is dramatic, Mom. She doesn't even live here. Nan didn't argue. She just said, the paper's filed. It's done. I remember feeling awkward, like I'd been handed a gift I hadn't earned in front of someone who thought I didn't deserve it. I thanked Nan and changed the subject. I didn't understand what she'd actually given me. I do now. Back in the hotel 2 in the morning, I had the deed scan open in one tab and the group chat screenshots in another. I toggled between them like I was cross-referencing a structural report against field conditions. The deed said I was a co-owner. The chat said they were selling. And the math was simple. You can't easily sell a house when someone else's name is on the title. That's not a loophole or a technicality. That's property law. If my name was on the deed, and it was right there in the county's own database, scanned and indexed, then no title company would clear the closing without questions. No buyer's lender would approve a loan on a clouded title. The sale might not die instantly, but it would stall hard, and stalling a real estate closing a week before Christmas is close enough to killing it. I closed the laptop and lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. The air conditioner hummed. My phone sat dark on the nightstand. Finally quiet after hours of buzzing. I thought about calling Nan. That was the reflex. 3 years dead, and I still reached for her number when things didn't make sense. She would have known what to do. She always did. She planned 8 years ahead and filed the paper that proved it. She didn't tell me what to do with it because she trusted me to figure it out when the time came. I turned on my side and looked at the brass key on the desk, sitting next to the laptop like a small patient witness. The county recorder confirmed what Nan set up. My family confirmed what they were trying to do. The only question left was what I would do with both pieces of information. I didn't have an answer yet, but I had something better. I had time. The closing was December 26th. It was December 3rd, 23 days. I need to stop here for a second. If you're watching this and part of you is doing the math on your own family, who would notice if you went quiet, who only calls when they need a signature? I see you. Subscribe and stay with me because what I found in that county database is exactly why I never raised my voice. Not once. The next morning, Mom called. I let it ring 3 times before I answered because I needed 3 rings to flatten my voice into something normal. Hi, sweetheart. She sounded warm. She always sounds warm when she wants something to go smoothly. So, Christmas, we're keeping it small this year. Just the 4 of us at the house. You know how it is. But if you're back from your project by the 28th, you could swing by for leftovers. The 28th. There it was. Delivered on schedule, exactly as the chat prescribed. I held the phone away from my ear for a second and looked at the screenshot still open on my laptop. Message 14. Diane, the 28th. Say we're doing a small thing on the 28th. She was reading from her own script.
That sounds fine, Mom.
I'll check my schedule.
Perfect.
Don't bring anything fancy, just yourself. She laughed. I didn't. I said goodbye and hung up and sat very still for a long time.
The worst part wasn't the lie.
I'd been lied to before about schedules, about why I wasn't included, about whether they'd received the gift I sent. The worst part was how easy it was for her. The rhythm of her voice, the warmth she manufactured, the little laugh at the end, all of it practiced, all of it aimed at keeping me exactly where I was, far away, uninformed, and grateful for leftovers. She didn't even hesitate on the date. No pause, no stumble, no flicker of guilt in the word 28th. Just the number delivered smooth like a receptionist confirming an appointment. Just the 28th like she was reading a weather forecast. I saved the call log, not the audio, just the timestamp. December 4th, 9:47 a.m. duration 2 minutes and 11 seconds. 2 minutes to lie to your daughter. She didn't even need 3. 2 days later, Brooke called. She didn't mean to tell me anything. She just talked too much, the way she always does when she's nervous.
She started with small talk.
Her job at the salon, a guy she'd been seeing, a complaint about the weather. Then she mentioned Nathan, and her voice shifted.
He's been really stressed.
The shop's not doing great. Nathan ran an auto body shop on Route 9 outside Millfield. He had opened it 4 years ago with a loan co-signed by Mom. I knew about the loan because Mom had mentioned it once proudly at a dinner I was actually invited to. One of the last ones. How bad?
I asked.
Brooke paused.
Bad.
Like the bank sent letters bad. Mom's on the hook too, because she co-signed. So if he defaults, she trailed off. I didn't push. I didn't need to. The picture assembled itself. Nathan's business was going under. The co-signed loan meant Mom's credit and possibly her savings were exposed. And selling Nan Margaret's house was the fastest way to cover the gap. The house was paid off. No mortgage. In a market like Millfields, a 2-story clapboard on a quarter-acre might bring $250, maybe $270. Enough to clear the loan. Enough to bail Nathan out and get Mom off the hook. Enough to matter. And there it was. The shape of the thing I hadn't been able to see from the group chat alone. This wasn't about hating me. It wasn't personal the way a slap is personal. It was financial triage. And I was the complication they decided to root around rather than include. They didn't cut me out because they were angry. They cut me out because involving me would mean admitting they needed something from me. And admitting that would mean treating me as someone whose answer mattered. That was the part they couldn't stomach. All they needed to close was one signature they assumed I'd hand over without reading the fine print. Or better yet, one signature they could avoid needing if they just kept me out of the room entirely. Brooke circled back to small talk. I let her. Before we hung up, she said something that stuck. We just didn't think you'd care about the old place. I said goodnight and wrote the sentence down on the hotel notepad, word for word. December 10th, I'd been back at the bridge site for a week, driving rebar schedules during the day and reading real estate law at night. I downloaded the full deed scan from the county recorder website and saved it to a folder on my desktop labeled 412 Sycamore. The document was 2 pages. Page 1, the standard quit-claim language. Margaret and Grant Grantor does hereby quit claim to Diane Patricia Grant and Audrey Elizabeth Grant as tenants in common. The following describe property. Then the legal description, lot number, tax parcel ID, all of it recorded and stamped. Page 2, Nan's signature, mine, the notary's seal, the filing date. I printed both pages on the hotel's business center printer and put them in a manila folder. I held the folder in my hands for a long time. It weighed almost nothing. Tenants in common. I'd looked it up carefully by now. It meant Diane and I each owned an undivided interest in the property. Not half the kitchen and half the yard, half of all of it. And the critical part, neither of us could sell the whole property without the other's consent. Diane couldn't convey my interest. She couldn't sign for me. She couldn't close a sale that transferred 100% of 412 Sycamore to a buyer unless I signed the deed of sale, too. If she tried, the title company would flag at the moment they ran the title search, which meant one of 2 things. Either they hadn't told the title company about me or they had. And the plan was to get my signature separately, quietly framed as something else. I closed the manila folder and put it in my work bag next to the brass key. 2 pieces of Nan Margaret sitting side by side waiting. I went back to the group chat screenshots. Message 31. Nathan, closings the 26th.
Just keep her clear till then.
Message 33. Mom, Karen says the buyer wants a walk through Christmas afternoon.
Karen.
I searched Karen Whitfield, Realtor, Millfield, Ohio, and found her in 4 seconds. Whitfield and Associates, a small brokerage on the east side of town, headshot on the website with a blazer and a smile. She had the listing for 412 Sycamore on her page. For bedrooms, 2 baths, wraparound porch, asking $265. Listed 3 weeks ago. Contact agent for details. I stared at the listing photos. Someone had staged the living room. Nan's armchair was gone, replaced by a gray sofa I didn't recognize. The kitchen had been painted white. The porch railing where I used to sit with my coffee was sanded and re-stained. The upstairs bedroom, my bedroom, the one I'd slept in during college, had been emptied and arranged with furniture from a catalog. They'd erased Nan from the house before they'd even sold it. They had been preparing this for weeks, maybe months. And the closing was December 26th. The day after the Christmas gathering I was being steered away from. I did the math. They hadn't forgotten me. They hadn't excluded me because I was inconvenient or boring or too busy to bother with. They'd excluded me because keeping me away from the house was a logistical requirement for the sale. If I showed up on Christmas, I might see the staging. I might ask why the furniture was different. I might notice the lockbox on the front door. The wrong date wasn't cruelty for its own sake. It was project management. I was a variable they needed to control. I closed the listing tab, opened a blank document, and typed one line. Do not react. Do not confront. Let the system work. Then I saved the file, shut the laptop, and went to bed. I didn't sleep. December 12th, I called a real estate attorney. Not a family friend, not anyone from Millfield, a licensed attorney in Columbus whose office I found through the state bar's referral line. I told him the situation in about 4 minutes. Co-owner on a recorded deed, tenants in common, property listed for sale, closing scheduled. No one has asked me to sign or inform me of the transaction. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, that closing is almost certainly not happening without you. I asked him to be specific. He was no title company he'd ever worked with would issue a clear title policy if a recorded co-owner hadn't signed the conveyance. The buyer's lender, if there was a lender, would require clear title before funding. Even if it was a cash sale, no competent closing agent would proceed knowing there was an unreleased interest on the deed. Your signature isn't optional, he said. It's structural. I almost laughed at the word structural. That's my job. Finding the piece that holds the rest together, the one you can't remove without the whole thing shifting. I asked him what would happen if they tried to close anyway. He said the title search would flag my name. The closing would stall and the buyer would likely walk or renegotiate. If my family wanted to force a sale without my agreement, they'd have to file a petition action. A lawsuit heard in open court, public record, months of process. In my experience, he said, families don't want that. I thanked him, paid the consultation fee, and hung up. I wrote down one sentence from the call on the hotel notepad, underlined it twice. Your signature isn't optional. It's structural. Then I sat with it. 23 days had become 14. I still hadn't said a word to any of them. I could have called Mom that night. I had the screenshots, the deed, and the attorney's confirmation. I could have laid it all out. The group chat, the wrong dates, the listing photos with Nan's armchair replaced by a stranger's sofa. I could have made her explain herself. But I've been through enough conversations with Diane Grant to know how they end. She cries. She reframes. She tells me I'm hurting her by being hurt. And somewhere around minute 12, I find myself apologizing for noticing what she did. Not this time. I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted a process. The kind of outcome that doesn't depend on anyone feeling guilty, because guilt requires a conscience. And I was no longer sure they had one available for me. I've spent my career building things that hold up under pressure. Bridges, retaining walls, structures that stand because the math is right, not because somebody promised they would. I believe in systems, and the system already had my answer. The deed was filed. The title search would find it. The closing would stall. I didn't need to raise my voice. The county recorder's office had already spoken for me 8 years ago. So I decided I wouldn't sign the sale documents. I wouldn't confront anyone. I wouldn't explain or argue or plead. I would contact the realtor directly, identify myself as a co-owner on the recorded deed, and let the title company do what title companies do: verify ownership, flag the discrepancy, and halt the closing until every party with a legal interest had been consulted. I wasn't going to shout the truth. I was going to file it. And on Christmas morning, after they'd gathered at the house and toasted their success and congratulated themselves on keeping me blind, I would send one message into that group chat, the one they'd accidentally let me see, and let the system handle the rest. One message. That was all I'd need. I didn't know the words yet, but I knew the shape of them. Short, calm, and pointing somewhere they couldn't argue with. I picked up the brass key and turned it over my fingers. 14 days. December 15th. I composed an email to Karen Whitfield at Whitfield and Associates. I kept it professional, the same tone I use when I send a field report to a general contractor. Dear Miss Whitfield, my name is Audrey Grant. I am writing regarding the property at 412 Sycamore Street, Millfield, Ohio, currently listed through your office. I am a recorded co-owner of this property as a tenant in common per a quitclaim deed filed with the county recorder 8 years ago. I have not been contacted regarding the pending sale or asked to sign any conveyance documents. I would appreciate confirmation of the transaction status and clarification on how my ownership interest is being addressed in the closing process. I can be reached at this email or by phone. I read it 3 times, checked the deed recording number, attached the scan copy, and sent it. Karen Whitfield called me 4 hours later. Her voice was professional but tight. The voice of someone recalculating a deal in real time. Miss Grant, thank you for reaching out. I've reviewed the deed you attached, and I've also pulled the title report. I need to verify a few things with the title company. Can I call you back? She called back the next morning. The title search confirmed my name on the deed. The closing, she said carefully, could not proceed as currently structured without my participation. She asked if I'd been in contact with the other owner, Diane Grant, about the sale. No, I said I learned about it through other channels. A pause. I see. I'll need to inform the seller and the buyer's agent that there is an unresolved ownership issue. That's fine, I said. I'd prefer all communication regarding the property go through proper channels. I gave her the attorney's contact. She thanked me and hung up. The fuse was lit. I didn't need to touch it again. Quick pause. If you've made it this far, you already know I'm not going to scream at anyone. That's not the win. The win is quieter, and it's coming. Hit subscribe so you don't miss how one line in a group chat ends a closing worth more than my brother's whole business. Okay. Christmas morning, December 19th. A PDF arrived in my email from Mom. No subject line, just an attachment labeled estate_cleanup_docs. PDF and a one-line message. Audrey, can you sign these and send back before the 24th? Just routine estate paperwork from Nan's Trust. Thanks, Mom. I opened the PDF on my laptop, and the first page was not routine estate paperwork. It was a deed of sale, a conveyance document transferring all interest in 412 Sycamore Street from Diane Patricia Grant and Audrey Elizabeth Grant to a buyer named Gerald Foss for a purchase price of $265,000. My signature line was on page 4, flagged with a yellow tab and the word sign in Brooks' handwriting. I recognized the loopy S. The purchase price was listed. The buyer's name was there. The legal description matched 412 Sycamore down to the lot number. Page 5 was a disbursement schedule showing the proceeds going to a single bank account. Mom's not split, not shared. 100% of the sale price minus closing costs routed to Diane Patricia Grant. My name was on the signature line, but nowhere in the payment section. They didn't just want me to sign away my ownership. They wanted me to do it for free. They hadn't even tried to hide what it was. They just bet that I wouldn't read it. Just initial where the tabs are, sweetheart. Don't overthink it. That's what Mom would say if I called to ask. I could hear the sentence in her head. Fully formed, ready to deploy. They wanted my signature on a document that would erase my ownership of the only place that ever felt like home. and they wrapped it in a PDF called Estate Cleanup and sent it 4 days before Christmas like it was a holiday card. I saved the file. I forwarded it to my attorney. And I did not sign. I didn't reply to Mom's email either. I left it sitting in my inbox, read but unanswered the way they'd left me standing on a porch with a baking dish last December, acknowledged just enough to confirm I existed, and then ignored. That night, I held the brass key in my closed fist and sat on the hotel bed in the dark. The deed of sale was still open on the laptop screen, glowing blue-white across the room. I thought about Nan Margaret. Not the legal version, not the grantaire on a quitclaim deed, but the real one. The woman who made iced tea without measuring, who kept a stack of crossword puzzles by the back door, who noticed when I was quiet, and never once told me I was too sensitive for noticing what I noticed. She signed that deed because she saw this coming. Maybe not the details, not Nathan's failing shop or Mom's desperation or the group chat or the PDF disguised as routine paperwork, but the shape of it. She saw that I would be the one they spent around. And she put my name on the one thing they couldn't spend without me. That wasn't sentimentality. That was engineering. The key in my hand was warm from holding it. I opened my palm and looked at it. The square bow, the tarnished brass, the teeth cut for a lock that still worked on a door I hadn't opened in 3 years. It wasn't a keepsake anymore. It was a title. It was proof that someone had looked at me and said, not with words, but with a notary stamp, she belongs here. I closed my hand around it again. I still hadn't replied to Mom's email. I still hadn't signed anything. And in 6 days, Karen Whitfield was going to walk into a closing meeting and tell my family that the sale couldn't proceed because the woman they had written off the guest list was written onto the deed. I typed my one message into the chat's draft field and saved it. I'd send it Christmas morning, December 23rd. I'd finished the bridge project 2 days early. My team lead said I could head home for the holiday if I wanted. I drove back to my apartment in Columbus instead of to Millfield. I unpacked, did laundry, watered the plant on my kitchen counter that was somehow still alive, and sat down at my own desk for the first time in a month. The manila folder was in my bag. I took it out and set it next to the brass key, which I'd placed on the desk like a paperweight. Both objects from Nan Margaret, both quiet, both loaded. I opened the group chat on my phone one more time. The conversation had continued without me. More logistics, more coordination. Brooke asked if she should bring pie. Nathan confirmed the walkthrough time with the buyer. Mom reminded everyone to keep things normal if Audrey texted. Dad didn't type anything new. He didn't need to. His laughing emoji was still sitting there in the scroll like a monument to indifference. I looked at my saved draft. I'd written and rewritten it over 3 weeks, and every version kept shrinking until it was just one short line. Merry Christmas. Your realtor will explain the rest. No accusation, no emotion, no exclamation marks. I wasn't going to explain what I knew or how I knew it. I wasn't going to give them a thread to pull or a tone to criticize. I was going to point them toward the one person who had the authority and the obligation to tell them the truth. The realtor whose title search had already flagged my name. I didn't block anyone. I wanted them to read it together in the same chat where they'd planned my absence at the same table where they'd gathered without me. Christmas Eve. The group chat lit up one last time. Not that they knew I was watching. Nathan posted a photo of the house, freshly staged, porch lights on, a wreath that wasn't Nan's on the door. Brooke replied with heart emojis. Mom typed, "Tomorrow's going to be perfect. Don't forget, nobody mentions Audrey. She thinks it's the 28th. Dad sent a Santa emoji. I read it from my couch in Columbus, with a mug of tea going cold in my hands. Nobody mentions Audrey. 3 words that summarized a decade of holiday math. Every last-minute change, every locked door, every, "Oh, we thought we told you." It wasn't casual, it was policy. I set the phone face down on the couch cushion. Outside, someone in the apartment above mine was playing Christmas music, the bass thudding through the ceiling like a slow heartbeat. I thought about what tomorrow would look like from their side. Nathan relieved, pouring coffee, talking through the walk-rough schedule with the buyer's agent. Mom orchestrating the table, fussing with napkins, satisfied that everything was on track. Dad quiet in his recliner, watching whatever game was on. Brooke setting out plates for 4 instead of 5, not counting the absence because she'd stopped counting it years ago. They'd raise a glass. They'd eat. They'd feel good about the closing and good about the holiday, and good about the fact that the one person who could have complicated things was sitting in Columbus believing the party was on the 28th. And at some point in the morning, probably around 10, when they were all together and comfortable and certain, my message would land in the chat like a stone dropped into still water. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt the way I feel when a bridge inspection comes back and the numbers are exactly what the drawing said they'd be. Clear, verified, done. I washed my mug, set my alarm for 7, and went to bed early. The brass key was on the nightstand. The manila folder was in my desk drawer. Tomorrow, the paper would speak for itself. Christmas morning. I woke at 7, made coffee, and sat at my desk. I opened the group chat. The messages were already flowing. Merry Christmas from Brooke with a tree emoji. Morning fam from Nathan. A candy cane sticker from Dad. Mom sent a photo of the dining table set for 4. White plates, red napkins, candles for chairs for place. I counted them the way I count rebar spacing on a drawing precisely, without emotion, because the number is the number. At 9:48 a.m., I tapped the draft I'd saved 3 weeks earlier and hit send. Merry Christmas. Your realtor will explain the rest. One line, no emoji, no punctuation drama, just a sentence and a period. I set the phone on the desk, screen up, and watched. The typing indicator appeared under Brooke's name, then vanished, then appeared under Mom's name, then vanished. Nathan's appeared for a full 10 seconds, vanished. Nobody sent a word. The chat that had been buzzing with cheer 4 minutes ago went absolutely silent. The kind of silence that doesn't mean nobody has anything to say, but means everybody has too much. I picked at my coffee. It was still warm. I took a sip and waited. 30 seconds. A minute. 2 minutes. The typing bubble appeared and disappeared 6 more times. Nobody could figure out what to say because my message didn't give them anything to argue with. I didn't accuse. I didn't cry. I didn't explain how I knew. I just aimed them at the one person who had the paperwork in front of her, Karen Whitfield, who by now had already left a voicemail with my mother explaining that the title had an unresolved co-ownership issue and the December 26th closing was suspended pending further review. The phone stayed silent for 4 more minutes. Then it started ringing. Nathan called first. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. Voicemail. Brooke tried next 3 times in 90 seconds. I watched the screen like I was monitoring a seismograph. Then Mom. Her name flashed over and over.
Call after call.
The phone vibrating so hard it slid an inch across the desk each time. I didn't pick up. Dad texted. The first actual text he'd sent me in months. Call your mother. I read it and set the phone back down. The calls kept coming. I opened a notes app and started a tally, because I'm an engineer and that's what I do with data. I track it. Nathan, 14 calls in the first 20 minutes. Brooke, 9. Mom, 22. Dad, 3 calls. 2 more texts. Both just call home. Brooke sent a private message. Audrey, what does that mean? What realtor? Please call me back.
I didn't reply.
Mom left a voicemail. I played it once. Her voice was high, cracked, fast. Audrey, I don't know what you think you know, but you need to call me right now. This is a family matter, and you are blowing it out of proportion. Blowing it out of proportion. The woman who orchestrated a 3-year campaign of fake dates and managed exclusion was telling me I was overreacting. I played it a second time, not because I needed to hear it again, but because I wanted to make sure the transcript saved correctly.
It did.
Nathan left 1, 2. Shorter, angrier. You had no right to go behind our backs. Call me behind their backs. As if the group chat I was never supposed to see was the front. I screenshotted the voicemail transcript and saved it next to the 47 messages and the deed scan and the estate cleanup PDF. The phone kept buzzing. By 10:48, exactly 1 hour after I'd sent the message, the tally was 89 calls. 89. I wrote the number on the notepad, circled it, and set down the pen. For 3 years, they couldn't be bothered to dial my number on Christmas. Now, they couldn't stop. Here's what I learned later. Pieced together from Brooke's version and from what Karen Whitfield confirmed through my attorney. Karen had left a voicemail for Mom on December 23rd, a professional courtesy. The title search had flagged a co-owner, me, who had not been consulted or included in the sale process. Karen recommended pausing the closing until the issue was resolved. Mom didn't tell anyone. She assumed she could handle it after Christmas. She figured she'd call Karen on the 26th, smooth it over, maybe tell her I was estranged and wouldn't be a problem.
She didn't call me.
She didn't mention Karen's message to Nathan or Dad or Brooke. She buried it the way she'd buried every complication I ever represented. Quietly, confidently, on her own schedule. Then my message landed in the chat, and Karen's voicemail stopped being a problem she could postpone and became a crisis she couldn't contain. Nathan called Karen at 10:15 on Christmas morning. Karen, to her credit, was measured. She told him what she'd already told Mom. The title showed 2 owners. Only one had authorized the sale, and the closing could not proceed until the other co-owner, Audrey Elizabeth Grant, either consented to the transaction or the parties reached a legal resolution. Nathan asked what legal resolution meant. Karen explained a petition action filed in court, heard by a judge. A matter of public record. She said it could take months. She said the buyer had already been informed and was considering withdrawing the offer. Nathan hung up. According to Brooke, he walked back into the dining room, set his phone on the table between the white plates and the red napkins and said, "She's on the deed. The whole thing's dead." Mom sat down. Her hand went to her mouth. Dad stared at his plate. The same man who'd sent a laughing emoji 3 weeks earlier now had nothing on his face at all. Brooke said the room stayed silent for a full minute. Nobody touched the food. The candles Mom had lit were still burning, wax pooling in the holders. Finally, Nathan said, "We need a lawyer." Mom's chin trembled. "She's ruining everything." She said it twice. Nobody disagreed, and nobody corrected her. Brooke went to the kitchen and stood by the sink and called me for the 9th time. I didn't answer that one either. At 11:20, I picked up the phone and called back. One call. I chose Mom's number because she was the architect, and I wanted her to hear this from me directly, not filtered through Nathan or paraphrased by Brooke. She answered on half a ring. "Audrey, what have you done?" Her voice was wet and shaking, the cry that comes out when the script fails and there's no backup. I could hear the room behind her. Nathan's voice low and angry, Brooke sniffling, the clink of a fork being set down hard. She had me on speaker. Good. I wanted all of them to hear this. "I haven't done anything, Mom. Karen Whitfield did a title search, which is standard. She found my name on the deed, which has been recorded for 8 years. And she paused the closing, which is what title companies do when there's an ownership issue." My voice was level. I'd rehearsed it the way I rehearse presentations to building inspectors. Facts first, short sentences, no editorializing. "You are ruining this family," Mom said. Nathan in the background. "This is insane. She hasn't lived there in years." I let the noise pass. Then I said, "You told me the wrong date again. You planned a sale around my absence. You sent me a deed of sale disguised as estate paperwork and expected me to sign it without reading." I read it. Silence. Then Mom. Softer now. The pivot to guilt. "We were going to tell you, Audrey, we were going to split the money. You would have gotten your share." "When?" I asked. "Before or after closing?" She didn't answer. "You told me the wrong date like last year." I let the sentence sit. "Then the deed has the right one." Dad's voice barely above a murmur cutting through the room. "We shouldn't have done it that way." Nobody responded to him. He didn't say anything else. That was his one honest moment. 7 words. Too late. Aimed at no one. Landed on nothing. I told them my attorney's contact information and said that any further discussion about the property should go through him. I wished them a Merry Christmas. I meant it. Then I hung up, set the phone face down on the desk, and sat in the silence of my own apartment where nobody was planning anything behind my back. The closing on December 26th did not happen. Gerald Foss, the buyer, withdrew his offer 2 days after Christmas. His agent cited the unresolved title issue and said his client wasn't interested in waiting for a legal process with an uncertain timeline. Karen Whitfield called my attorney on the 28th, the day I was supposed to have shown up for leftovers, and confirmed that the listing was being pulled pending resolution of the co-ownership dispute. Nathan's loan went into default in January. The bank sent a formal notice to both him and Mom, who had co-signed. Without the sale proceeds, there was no lump sum to clear the debt, and Nathan's shop didn't generate enough to cover the monthly payments.
I didn't learn this from them.
I learned it from Brooke, who called me in February, voice small and raw, and said, "Everything's falling apart." I told her I was sorry things were hard. I meant it. Then I told her what I'd told my attorney to communicate. I was willing to discuss the property, but only at a proper mediation with a neutral third party, and only if my ownership interest was fully acknowledged. No side conversations, no PDF surprises. No, just sign here, sweetheart. The mediation happened in March. Mom, Nathan, Dad, and I sat in a conference room at the attorney's office in Columbus. Brooke didn't come. She said she couldn't handle it, which was honest. Mom cried twice during the first hour. The first time was strategic. The tears she uses to signal that she's the victim. The second time was real, I think, when the mediator laid out the numbers, and she realized that the house she'd grown up in, the house her own mother had built a life in, was now a problem she couldn't solve without the daughter she'd spent 3 years excluding. Nathan said almost nothing. Dad sat with his hands folded and his eyes on the table. I presented 2 options. We could sell the property together with proceeds split according to our recorded ownership 50/50ths, as the deed stated, and with a proper transparent closing, or I would buy out Diane's share at fair market value appraised by a licensed professional. I didn't offer a third option. I didn't negotiate against myself. Nathan finally spoke. He leaned forward and said, "Nan would have wanted us to keep it in the family." I looked at him for a long moment. "Nan did keep it in the family," I said. "She put my name on it. The question is whether you consider me family." The mediator suggested a break. We took 10 minutes. When we came back, Mom asked if we could just go back to how things were. The mediator asked her to clarify. She couldn't. We agreed to the sale. The house went back on the market in April with a new listing agent, not Karen, because Mom refused to work with her again, which was fine. It sold in May for $258,000. My share, after closing costs, was $121,000. I deposited it into a savings account and didn't touch it. Before the new buyers moved in, I drove to Millfield one last time. I parked on Sycamore, walked up the porch steps, and put the brass key into the lock. It still fit. The door opened into an empty house that smelled like fresh paint and wood polish. I stood in the living room where Nan's armchair used to be, and I didn't cry. I just looked around, said thank you to nobody and everybody, and pulled the door shut behind me. I took the key off my ring and left it on the porch railing, the only thing of Nan's that stayed with the house. It wasn't about the money. It was never about the money. They spent 3 Christmases making sure I wouldn't find out, coordinating dates I'd never be invited to and doors I'd never walk through. And not one of them stopped to remember that the woman they kept writing off the guest list had been written onto the deed years before by the one person in that family who actually saw her. That's my story. 47 messages, 1 reply, and 89 calls I let ring. If this reminded you that your name belongs on your own life, not in someone else's footnotes, take that as your sign. Set the boundary today. And if someone you love needs to hear this, share it with them. Thank you for being here. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next.